Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody is healthy and relaxed and calm. This is the first video I'm going to do for my college courses online, my own personal video at least. I was prolonging the inevitable for a while, but it's obvious we're not going back anytime soon, so wanted to give you as much information as I can provide, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much, so it's going to be pretty laid back from here on out, but I do want to teach still. So thankfully we're in San Diego and I have this little space outside. It's not much. I call it the Graystone Easement Studios. Pretty much just have a wheel, a wedging table, some shelving, a banding wheel. There's a nice little roof above me with some lights at night. It's quite charming at night, actually. I don't use it too much because I work at the schools a lot. I come out here and throw sometimes. I started throwing again over this break. But yeah, I don't really get too much use out of it, unfortunately. But today we'll have some great educational use. So what I want to talk about today is like clay preparation and wedging. So if you're in my Ceramics 1 class, we haven't really touched wedging at all yet. Ceramics 2 and 3, I would hope you have all been wedging. It's definitely mandatory if you want to get on the potter's wheel. You really need to learn how to wedge. It's a good way to recycle your clay, to reuse some of your scraps, to stay pretty efficient. It's really one of the most important things ultimately, but I don't really teach it to Ceramics 1 in the very beginning, because with your pinch pots and your coil pots, it doesn't necessarily have to be wedged. And wedging takes a long time to do right, and it takes a little bit of practice. So I often see with beginners that improper wedging is often more detrimental than just teaching wedging right away. So wedging is like a kneading process. I'm sure you've seen some people do it around the studio. We have some tables specifically for wedging in Miramar and Southwestern and any other major ceramic studio I've ever been in. At Miramar, it's in the center of the room. It's that concrete table, it's square. At Southwestern, it's outside. It's that big plaster table. I here in the studio have this concrete board. It's called like backer board. It's used for when you're remodeling bathrooms, and it kind of goes behind the tile or drywall or whatever, because it's like absorbent and it fights off mold, I think. I don't know. Anyways, it works really good for wedging at home, and it was cheap. I think it was like less than $20 for this big sheet. So yeah, wedging. We'll just talk about the idea of it for a little bit longer, and then I'll actually just show you guys how it's done. Obviously, the best way to learn is just from practice. Anything that we do in ceramics and anything that you guys have done so far, it just takes practice. It takes repetition. It takes doing it over and over again until you're fluent at it, right? And even after I've been doing ceramics for 17 years, and I've been noticing I get better all the time still, as long as I stay working. So that's what I'm going to do today. So yeah, wedging. Ultimately, if you have recycled clay, which I have a little bit of here, this was recycled at Miramar in a nice Peter Pugger machine. It pulls all the air out for you, and that's a really good machine. The clay mixers that we have and the Puggers at Southwestern don't de-air it as well, so you notice the clay is a little short. It kind of cracks a little easily. It kind of feels a little foamy, not as dense. But Southwestern did just get approved to buy 2 new really big, nice Peter Puggers, which is going to be an amazing asset to the studio when we get back. And I have some store-bought clay too, and I have some white clay and some red clay, and I'm going to go over wedging and its kind of basics, and I'm going to do a little bit more advanced stuff too. Okay, so wedging, what it does is it's going to purge all the air bubbles out of your clay, but it also makes it like a homogeneous moisture content. So if you have any clay that has little hard spots in it, if you didn't wrap up your bag well enough, or you're wedging some scraps together, it'll all make it a homogeneous moisture content. And something we practice at Southwestern is if your clay is too wet, we'll wedge in a little ball clay right at the wedging table there. We'll just take a little scoop of powdered clay and start wedging it into the wet clay, and that will dry it up pretty quick. It also makes the clay like a little more compact. It makes it like a little tighter. It aligns all the particles of the clay. If you can imagine, all the little particles of the clay are like platelets, like little pieces of shale almost, like flat particles. And when they're out of the machine or out of the store or whatever, all those particles are in almost every direction. And then when you wedge them, it lines up all the particles. So they all start to kind of compact and lay flatter against each other. And it makes the clay stronger. It makes it less likely to crack. And it just kind of, I want to say, makes it like a little denser and a little more forgiving. So yeah, let's just start wedging some stuff, and I'll explain some more as I go. And I apologize, I've never taken a video like this of myself ever. Maybe one time, like a slow motion or stop motion one. And so if it's windy or the sound quality or the video quality is not good, I apologize. But hey, I think I'm pretty fortunate just to have this little space. So here we go. I'm gonna get back. Okay, so we'll start with this clay, and just like I teach in the beginning of the semester, not to like claw clay out of your bag, but it's good practice to take your clay out, whether it be a big block or the extruded piece, and just with the bigger pieces, just wrap the plastic back and cut a nice chunk out of it. Because if we just start clawing in there and removing little pieces at a time and slapping them together, what's going to happen is you're going to trap air, and you're just going to leave your clay bag a mess. So I like to always kind of just neatly cut a piece. These are probably about 2 pounds each. The weight starts to matter once we get on the potter's wheel. I always tell beginners to start with like a 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. So this is, I guess, a good portion to start wedging. So I've cut a neat piece out of the bag, and I'll wedge both of these for now. It's a little dirty, sorry. Make sure you have a clean wedging surface. I'm not going to pick up any debris or any dirt, or if I'm really worried about any other clay, I'd clean it up really well, but I'm just going to leave it like that. So there's a couple major ways of wedging. I'm going to show you one at least in particular today. It's called the ram's horn method or the monkey face method. And there's a couple other ways of wedging, but I've practiced one way my entire life, so that's just what I've become most fluent with. Maybe I'll practice some other ways and show you in a different video, or maybe later on in this video. But yeah, we're gonna go with this ram's horn method for now. If you guys know of any other ways of wedging and that somebody else has taught you and you're successful at it, be my guest, because it could be pretty taxing on the wrists the way I do it. In fact, I have a lot of wrist problems from wedging a lot over the years, so it's not the most ideal way, I think. I don't think it would affect most of you, but if you were to go on and do ceramics for the rest of your life, you might want to think about a more ergonomically friendly way of wedging. But yeah, anyways, so the wedging is a kneading process, and it's mostly done with your palms. Now I'll do this from a few different angles. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the clay and you're going to hold it mostly in your palms. Your fingers are going to kind of just lightly grab the back, but I'm going to be pushing into the clay with kind of like the meat of my thumbs here. And it's just a little nudge down and away. Now I'm going to do a few to get it started. So they call this, I'm already picking up some foreign debris. I don't know what that is. Could have been. Okay. They call it the ram's horn method or the monkey face method of wedging. It's because one, if you look at it from the front, put a little couple dots in there. It's a cute little monkey face. Or they call it the ram's horn method because from the side view, let's see, it'll start to spiral like a ram's horn. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of bending my knees a little bit so I'm a little more in line with the table, and I can let my body kind of go into the whole thing, even though it's only 2 pounds. I kind of use my whole body to press up against it, and it's just a little nudge down and away. I'm keeping it relatively squared off, so it's not getting much wider or longer. It's kind of staying relatively square, and it's mostly all with your palms. So what you do is you push a little nudge down and away with kind of the meat of your thumbs, and then you stand that monkey up on its chin and put your palms back on top of the forehead and push it back down and away. And it's like a little rocking motion. So it's up and then just a little down and a little bit away. Stand it up, a little down, a little bit away. Now, if you have air bubbles in here, they will pop out the front of those lips. The clay will cycle through, and if there's any air, they'll pop right here. But most of this clay is pretty good, so there shouldn't be any air. Maybe I'll force one later on. Okay. Now, if you have store-bought clay or really nice recycled clay like this, you probably want to wedge it between about 30-40 times if it's nice store-bought clay. If I'm using recycled clay, I'll probably wedge it up to like 60 times. And what I mean by that, it's like that's 1, 2, 3, 4. For the potter's wheel, they say you should always wedge, no matter what kind of clay that you're using. You should always wedge. And for some of the other construction methods, it's not as important, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, and I'll change angle so you guys can see a little bit from here. And I'm just gonna not use my fingers so you can kind of see that most of the force is with my palms and in my wrists. But you'll notice if I'm doing this fluently, I am kind of just lightly grabbing the back and using it to just move the clay around and lift it back up and kind of keep it squeezed together so it stays relatively squared off. Okay. Now I'm just doing this a lot more than I normally would, just for demonstration purposes. I know you're probably not getting the best view of it. So let's talk about some common things that people do wrong. I think one of the most common things people do wrong is they press too hard. So what happens if you press too hard? You end up, one, it doesn't really look very squared off anymore. It's getting a little too thin. But the most important thing is if you press too hard and you lift it back up, you're gonna actually, when it goes to fold on itself again, you're gonna trap a ton of air. It's like a crashing wave, right? And it's gonna trap air in all those little pockets. So you don't want to press too hard. That's the most common mistake I think for beginners is they go too hard into it and they smear the clay down and put all their weight into it, and they ended up with this really flat thing, and they stand it up and it starts to trap air. It's like a crashing wave. And like I said, improper wedging is much worse than just not wedging at all. So this clay is like it's 90-some% free of air bubbles, but improper wedging, I'm going to be adding a lot of air bubbles. So it's kind of the reason why I don't teach beginners right away, because you can make all your perfectly good clay worse. So go back and do that again. So don't press too hard, but you want to press hard enough just so you start creating those lips down there, okay? Another common mistake is you have to kind of cup the sides just a little bit. Most of the force is with your palms, with the meat of your thumbs, on the forehead of the monkey, but I do keep my palms wrapped around the sides just a little bit to keep it from getting too wide. So probably the second common biggest mistake is you don't cup the sides and you're pushing from the front the whole time, and then you start to get this really, what I call ET's head, right? Instead of a monkey, it's now looking like an extraterrestrial of sorts. I am my own head, I guess. He's cute though. Okay, so you don't want to press too hard, and you want to keep the sides kind of cupped off so it stays relatively square. Now, I've been wedging this a while, and this backer board or cement board is really absorbent, so it's taking a lot of the moisture out really fast, and it's just something to be aware of, that if my clay is already on the drier side and I wedge it a lot, it's going to get almost too dry to work with. But that being said, if the clay is really wet, I will just wedge it a little more, and I can usually dial it into just the right moisture content. Okay, so I might stop this one for now. Oh yeah, and when I'm done, here, I guess I got ahead of myself too much. So I'm wedging, and then once I've wedged, you know, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 times, I'm just going to do a couple light wedges at the end to kind of make those lips start to disappear, and just kind of pat it in and roll it into itself. And then you want to just carefully pat down these edges as to not trap air in any of those cracks. So I'm just going to lightly pat those cracks down, making sure I don't trap in air inside of any of them. I'm kind of sealing those folds off before they have a chance to trap air. Okay? And just turn it into a nice round ball for now. Now, some people will keep track of like where the tongue was, you know, how it was spiraled. I do sometimes, depending if it's a larger piece, and I'll keep that tongue facing up. I've heard people where they keep the tongue facing left, but again, it doesn't really matter. But you'll see sometimes I'll purposely leave just 1 or 2 lines there to show me where, you know, how that clay was spiraling. So I'll pat that around. And then as soon as I'm done wedging, I like to put my clay balls right into a plastic bag, because I've spent so much time trying to make this a nice, perfect, homogeneous moisture content, and if I leave this out, especially outside, and it's really windy right now, it's going to dry up really fast. So I'm just going to grab a chunk of plastic. I don't have a ton of supplies here, but I got enough, and I'll just keep it wrapped up for now. Now let's go through that one more time with a fresh piece, and let's see if I forgot anything. Make sure your table's relatively clean so I'm not picking up any foreign debris. I cut a nice fresh chunk out of my clay. Don't claw it out like a savage. And you can just start by pushing into the clay, kind of loosening it up, and then really it's with your palms down and away. So it's all, let's see if I can change this view, get a little closer for you guys. Got this new little tripod thing. There we go. So it's mostly with my palms. Okay? Again, I'm trying to do this from as many angles as I can. Maybe I need to hire a videographer. Alright, let's do it this way. Can you guys see? It's a little nudge down and away. Okay? And you're just pressing just enough to create those folds down here. That's really all you're looking for, is just a little smush, just to start kicking those lips up. Okay? And it should be a nice fluid, kind of relaxing, rocking motion. And again, this will purge all the air bubbles out. It makes it a homogeneous moisture content, and it starts to align all the particles of the clay. I'm going to quiz you guys on these videos, by the way. So that's definitely a question that's going to be on there, is wedging. It gets rid of the air bubbles, it makes it a homogeneous moisture content, and it lines up all the particles of the clay. That's those are the 3 big reasons why we wedge. You could also wedge to recycle your scraps, or to alter the moisture content overall of the clay. Right? It's hard to add water, but you could, I guess you could add some slip or something. It kind of gets a little messy, but okay. Again from the side. Stand the monkey up on its chin, palms on its forehead, down and away. Just a little nudge. Okay, I'm just trying to get you to get a good view of it. So flip it up, down. And if you guys brought any clay home, you could probably wedge on like a piece of plywood or like a wooden table that's not sealed. You'll notice if you try to wedge on like a like a regular countertop or anything really slick with a smooth surface that's not plaster, the clay will stick really bad. So you can try and wedge on your kitchen table or something, but it's probably gonna stick. So you either probably need a piece of drywall, works great. If you have any drywall laying around, you can set it on a tabletop. You could, a plywood would probably work fine, or any unfinished wooden table, or I don't know, just try it. If you notice it's sticking a lot, you're gonna have to find a different table surface. But yeah, if you guys have clay at home, and I'm curious to know how many of you guys do. I think we were all a little unsure leaving the studio. I know Miramar, I told a lot of you to take your clay home on the last day. Southwestern, I didn't really expect you guys to. It was just, we didn't know, right? There was so much uncertainty at the time, and there still is, and it's pretty wild. But I don't really want to talk about that too much. But if you have clay at home, you could practice doing this stuff, and it would be really helpful if you want to come back to take Ceramics 2, or come back for Ceramics 1 or whatever, or ever do this again. It's really important thing to learn, and it takes a while to learn, so it might be something to try at home. Although you might waste a little bit of the clay, you might dry out too much. I don't know, but worth a try. Sorry, I'm rambling. I haven't had any human contact. So when I get to the end, I just lightly wedge a couple times, just a couple little nudges, and then I'm going to start just patting this round slowly as to not trap any air in any of these grooves, any of these crevices. So you have to lightly pat them down so that it purges all the air out as that crack closes down. Now normally I just do it quick. I just pick it up and, right? We're good. Kind of cold out here, I'm not gonna lie. It's really nice in the sun, but in this shade with this wind, it's getting kind of cold. Moving into like a little more advanced wedging. What I was gonna do with you guys today is maybe talk about some other clay bodies too. One, I have this Black Mountain clay here that I purchased through the Southwestern College Clay Club. Got a pretty good price on it. I guess this is a good way to show you guys how to cut clay out of the big bags properly. Even though I've showed everybody this, what I like to do is just go down this way. I have my wire cutter if you didn't see it. And we'll just slice it across the top. You can see I was probably clawing out of this at one point, doing what I'm telling you not to do. But cut a nice chunk off. Super gratifying anyways. Let's do a couple of these. And this is going to be a nice visual on how the wedging actually works. So I'm going to take another clay body. This is Black Mountain by, I think Freeform makes it. And it's red or brown, but it fires pretty black actually. It's quite beautiful. In fact, I think my coffee mug back here that I was drinking out of, my coffee's probably cold right now, was made out of Black Mountain clay, and I don't want to spill my coffee, but you can see the clay on the foot ring is actually pretty black. It's beautiful. Cheers, kids. I made this at Southwestern a couple years ago. Holds like 32 ounces of coffee. So I'm gonna wedge this red clay. Maybe you'll be able to see it better or worse. I don't know. You can see it's already leaving a mess. But I'm gonna wedge this up a little bit. So, traditionally you'd see a red clay, and traditionally we would automatically think like terracotta, like things that they make your flower pots out of, or your clay shingle roofs. But over the years they've made everything. They've made high fire red clays, they've made high fire black clays, low fire white clays. There's a million types of clay out there now, or at least thousands in our country. And I'm going to show you something that is a little experimental. It's a technique that people have been doing forever, but for beginners, I want it to be clear that it's not always safe to mix clay bodies, but with testing and practice and a little bit of knowledge, you can. So what I was actually going to show you guys is wedge these up a little bit, and take this one and wedge this one up a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to cut this, pat it around. I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to get one of those white balls of clay. This is just the B mix. It's mostly B mix. I'm going to cut this little guy in half. And I'm going to do something completely asinine. And I'm going to take these bad boys and slap them together. Okay. For now. Now, this is going to be kind of just a visual. I've never really taught this in class, so I think it'd just be something fun to do for the video. And I noticed I had a bag of red and a bag of white, so I think it'll be relatively educational. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I just wedged it like 5, 6, 7 times. Let's cut it in half and see what happens. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? That's art in and of itself. But you can see that, you know, it didn't really mix yet. So people will make work like this, and they'll purposely wedge a couple different clay bodies together, and they'll throw with it, and they'll trim it up, and you'll actually get some beautiful patternings, some marbling, marbled clay. That's ultimately the word for what we're doing. You'll get some beautiful marbling in there. Steak. And in fact, maybe I'll just leave this one as is, and I'll throw with it on my next video, and we'll see what happens. Now let's do another one, and I'm going to take 2 more, slap them together. Now let's wedge this one to the point where we get full mixture, so you guys can see what it really takes to make the clay homogeneous. Okay. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Let's stop there and see what happens. Okay. Oh, that's gorgeous, right? It's like those ink blot tests. What do you see? Gorgeous. But, okay, so that was what, 10, 12, 20? So let's do... Gorgeous. Okay, so that was probably closer to 30. You can see we're getting a little better mixture, right? Some nice latte art going on, but soon we're just gonna have regular old coffee. So that was 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Okay, look at it, it's starting to get a lot more blended. Let's show this one. There, see, that's 45 though, and we still have spots. So, in theory, you know, you got to think about, you really want to make this clay completely even, completely homogeneous. I said about 60 times, I think was good. So, that's about 60 there. Okay. Now I can even just tell there's probably still a tiny bit left, but we've gotten rid of about 94% of it. But you can do this. You can mix clays together if they're the same temperature, right? Now you typically don't want to start adding porcelains and things. You can, I've done it. I've mixed red clay and porcelain and it worked out fine, but you have to test it. Okay, you have to test it in the bisque, you have to test it even through the glaze firing process. Where if I was doing something new like this, I would make a lot of small little pieces, little test tiles, little pinch pots, and glaze and fire them and glaze them and see if they all turn out okay before I went into full mass production, right? Because the clay bodies might not like each other. They might like each other too much and reach a eutectic point. But we'll talk about that later. So yeah, let's do that one more time. That's fun, huh? I'll do these two. I wish you guys could like ask me questions. I should probably do this on Zoom someday. But I don't like the pressure of being live. At this point, I'm still taking this in one take. I'm not gonna shoot more than one video, so I guess it doesn't matter. These bad boys. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see what happens. Whew. Pretty. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I might just leave these kind of crudely wedged together. It'll probably be too marbled by the time I throw with it, but we'll see. And, one more. So yeah, mostly I'm just doing this for a visual, so you guys can see that it really does take 60 to 70, wedges to make it all homogeneous. But there's also room for play there. There's room for error. There's room for experimentation. That's where the art comes in, right? It's just being random and not being afraid to make mistakes and not being afraid to try new things and lots of things, right? Okay. So yeah, wedging in a nutshell. Just the key things I want you to remember are why we wedge, and one, it's to get rid of all the moisture content. It's to get rid of all the air bubbles. It's about making it a homogeneous moisture content. It's about kind of compacting and aligning all the particles of the clay. It's absolutely necessary for wheel throwing. It's something you just have to learn by the time you get to the potter's wheel. But it's really useful and beneficial and really quite necessary actually in all projects. Like, I wouldn't typically start anything without wedging it first. Even sending clay through the extruder, I like to wedge first. Just kind of makes it a little tighter. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna continue doing some videos. I'll probably just do some pottery videos. Like, I have a potter's wheel. Maybe I'll do some slab stuff here. I don't have like a slab roller, obviously, but I'll probably get a rolling pin and maybe start doing some small stuff. We can talk about handles. I think this will be better, more interesting. I'm still gonna assign you guys other videos of other artists to watch, and you're gonna write like a page on it. And then what I'm thinking is I want you guys to be sketching. So I'm gonna, before the end of the semester, I'm gonna assign a couple assignments where you'll theoretically plan it all out. You'll do your write-up, you'll do your sketches, and you can make some stencils and things. But I'm taking it pretty laid back right now, if you didn't notice. This is pretty wild times. I've never experienced anything like this in my life, as I'm sure none of you have either. So it's pretty heavy, but I don't want to deprive you of all this wonderful ceramics knowledge I have pent up inside of me. I would love nothing more than to be back in the studio with you guys. So, and trust me on that. But I'll take requests. If you guys want to see anything in particular, I'll make it happen. Now, I'm gonna, again, maybe next week, I'll upload some videos of some really basic intro wheel throwing stuff, and maybe we'll walk through some more advanced forms later on. But if there's anything in particular that you guys want or need to see, or you want to talk about anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I don't really have anything else going on other than this stuff, right? As none of us do. So yeah, I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope you guys are safe. I hope you guys are healthy and relaxed. I know this can get pretty tense, sort of depressing, but yeah, don't spend too much time on your phones either. I don't know. Go learn a second language or go exercise by yourself somewhere. I'm Yeah. So thankfully I have the space. If you guys want to make stuff at home too, like I know at Miramar we said we'd fire some of your stuff at the end of the semester, which I'm 100% still okay with doing as long as my department is okay with it. If you guys coming back at the end of the semester, or obviously that might not even happen, so early next semester, I could potentially fire some stuff for you. I don't know how it's working at Southwestern or how open they are. It's a much bigger facility. Miramar is a kind of a more boutique program. Southwestern has a lot of classes, so I don't know if we could fire stuff for everybody. I think that might be too much. But Miramar is manageable, and I'd be doing it all myself, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Anyways, if you do work at home, be mindful of the dust. You know, I work outside, so I don't really care. But the dust is really not good for your lungs. Obviously, I hope you remember that already. And you know, I've heard problems where people leaving a lot of clay on the floor, and it's bad for their pets too, or small children. So if you do work at home, clean up after yourself really well. I keep a 5-gallon bucket ready to go at all times with rags in it to wipe everything down all the time, and that's even outside. So yeah, just wedging, super necessary process. Definitely have to learn it, and it just takes practice. I could talk about it all day, but you're not going to really know how to do it until you practice it and do it yourself and do it repetitively for a long time. So if you have some, try it, practice. If not, I'll probably quiz you on this video, just a few short answers. I'll put out depending on when I post this video, I'll put out a quiz due in like 1 week, or maybe right after spring break when we get back. Just nothing intense. I just want to make sure you guys are watching and participating. I still haven't heard from some of you. Miramar, I asked you guys to all email me. Some of you didn't. Southwestern, I was going to reach out to you guys after spring break. So yeah. God bless. Be safe, y'all. I'm out.